Commander Vex Thornwall stood before the reinforced containment cell, his forearms crossed in what he believed was an intimidating pose. His purple chitinous armor gleamed under the harsh blue lights of Kryllox Prime's maximum security detention facility, and his mandibles clicked with satisfaction. After 3 years of chasing shadows across 17 star systems, he had finally captured the most dangerous human in the galaxy. The ghost of Terra sat on the metal bench inside the cell, looking about as threatening as a middle-aged accountant at a company picnic. Jake Morrison wore a standard gray jumpsuit, had slightly thinning brown hair, and was currently examining his fingernails with the kind of casual interest usually reserved for grocery store magazines. "Behold," Vex announced to the assembled security team, his voice booming through the facility's corridors, "the terror that has plagued our shipping lanes for years. The phantom who infiltrates our most secure installations. The specter who vanishes without a trace, leaving only chaos in his wake." Jake looked up and blinked slowly. "You know, I really appreciate the dramatic introduction, but could someone grab me a coffee? I'm running on about 2 hours of sleep here. And your extraction team interrupted my lunch. I was having a really good sandwich too. Pastrami on rye. You probably don't have pastrami on whatever planet this is, do you?" Vex's mandibles clicked in annoyance. This was not how captured terrorists were supposed to behave. Where was the defiance? The desperate attempts to escape? The threats of revenge? Instead, this human seemed more concerned about caffeinated beverages and processed meat products. "Silence, criminal scum," Vex declared, puffing out his chest plates. "You are in the presence of Commander Vex Thornwall of the Galactic Defense Coalition, and you will show proper respect." "Oh, cool," Jake said, nodding politely. "Nice to meet you, Commander. Love what you've done with the place. Very retro-authoritarian chic. Though I have to say, your detention cell design could use some work. This bench is murder on the lower back, and the lighting is giving me a headache. Who is your contractor? Because I'm pretty sure they overcharged you." The security team exchanged glances. Lieutenant Zeph Quickshot, a young Krylloxian with bright green chitin and an unfortunate tendency toward hero worship, leaned forward with interest. "Commander, is it normal for human prisoners to critique our architecture?" "Nothing about humans is normal, Lieutenant," Vex replied through gritted mandibles. "They are an unpredictable species with a disturbing lack of proper military protocol." Jake had stood up and was now examining the energy barrier that separated him from his captors. He knocked on it experimentally, and the barrier hummed in response. "Interesting. Plasma containment field, right? Looks like a Model 7 configuration. Good choice. Reliable. Energy efficient. Though you might want to check the resonance frequency calibration. I'm hearing a slight wobble in the harmonic output. Could indicate a failing capacitor in the secondary array." Vex stared at the human. "How could you possibly know about our containment systems?" "Lucky guess?" Jake shrugged. "I've seen a lot of energy barriers in my time. You pick things up. Speaking of picking things up, any chance I could get that coffee? And maybe a technical manual for this facility? I'm genuinely curious about your power distribution network. The lighting suggests you're running on a centralized fusion grid. But the temperature variations I felt during transport indicate some serious inefficiencies in your environmental controls." The commander felt a small knot of unease forming in his stomach, or at least in whatever passed for a stomach in his species. This was supposed to be the easy part. Capture the terrorist, throw him in a cell, extract information through intimidation and superior technology. The human was supposed to be cowering, not offering maintenance advice. Dr. Kalanexus, Vex called to the facility's chief science officer, who had been observing from the back of the group. "Begin preparations for enhanced interrogation. We will extract every secret from this human's mind." Dr. Nexus stepped forward, her silver lab coat shimmering under the harsh lights. Unlike Vex's military bearing, she carried herself with the confident curiosity of someone who had spent decades studying the mysteries of the universe. Her large, multifaceted eyes gleamed with interest as she studied Jake through the barrier. "Fascinating," she murmured, making notes on her electronic tablet. Subject displays no signs of stress, fear, or aggression despite capture and detention. Instead, he appears to be conducting his own analysis of our facility. Most intriguing. Jake waved at her through the energy field. "Oh, hey there, Doc. Love your work, by the way. I read your paper on quantum entanglement applications in faster-than-light communication. Brilliant stuff. Though I think your math was off in the third equation. Should be a negative coefficient, not positive." Dr. Nexus blinked all 6 of her eyes in surprise. "You have read my research?" "A professional interest. I do a lot of technical reading in my spare time. Keeps the mind sharp, you know. Plus, your work on subspace field manipulation was directly applicable to some projects I was working on. Real cutting-edge stuff." Vex was beginning to feel like he was losing control of the situation, which was ridiculous because he was the one with the weapons, the authority, and the home field advantage. The human was locked in a cell and completely at their mercy. So why did he feel like Jake Morrison was somehow running this conversation? "Enough," Vex declared, his voice echoing through the facility. "Tomorrow we begin the interrogation in earnest. You will tell us everything about human military capabilities, defensive strategies, and technological developments. We will break you, Ghost of Terra, and when we do, humanity will fall before the might of the Coalition." Jake yawned and stretched. "Sounds good, Commander. Looking forward to it. But seriously, about that coffee, and maybe a technical schematic or two. I get really bored without something to read, and I'd hate to start critiquing your security systems out loud. Trust me, you don't want me getting bored in here." As the security team filed out, leaving Jake alone in his cell, Vex couldn't shake the feeling that he had just made a terrible mistake. But that was impossible. He was Commander Vex Thornwall, hero of the Outer Rim campaigns, terror of space pirates from here to the Andromeda Gate. A single human in a jumpsuit could not possibly pose any threat to him or his facility. Could he? The next morning, Vex arrived at the detention facility in his finest ceremonial armor, complete with his collection of service ribbons and a cape that he thought made him look distinguished. Today was the day he would break the Ghost of Terra and claim his place in military history. He found Jake sitting cross-legged on the floor of his cell, apparently meditating. "Good morning, Commander," Jake said without opening his eyes. "Sleep well? I hope the humidity in your quarters is better regulated than it is down here. I'm detecting at least 15% variance from optimal atmospheric conditions. Could lead to mold problems if you're not careful." Vex ignored the comment and activated the facility's intercom system. "Dr. Nexus, Lieutenant Quickshot, report to Detention Cell Alpha for enhanced interrogation procedures." Dr. Nexus arrived first, carrying an impressive array of scanning devices and analysis equipment. She seemed unusually cheerful for someone about to conduct an interrogation. Lieutenant Quickshot bounded in shortly after, practically vibrating with excitement. "Commander, sir," Quickshot said, snapping to attention with enough enthusiasm to power a small generator. "I've prepared the interrogation chamber as requested. All torture devices are fully operational and ready for deployment." "Torture devices?" Jake opened his eyes and looked interested. "What kind of torture devices? Please tell me they're more sophisticated than basic electrical stimulation. I hate when evil overlords go with the classics. So unimaginative." Vex felt his confidence wavering again. "We are not evil overlords. We are the legitimate government of this sector, maintaining peace and order against human aggression." Right, Jake nodded seriously. "My mistake. Totally legitimate government. I'm sure the torture devices are purely for maintaining peace and order. What's the model designation on your neural disruptors?" I'm hoping they're at least third generation. The older models have this annoying habit of causing permanent brain damage, which really defeats the purpose of interrogation. Dr. Nexus looked up from her equipment with curiosity. How do you know about neural disruptor classifications? Professional curiosity, Jake replied, standing up and brushing dust off his jumpsuit. I've always been interested in technology, especially the kind designed to cause extreme pain and suffering. Really makes you appreciate the ingenuity of sentient beings, you know? The creativity that goes into making other creatures miserable. Lieutenant Quickshot leaned closer to the energy barrier. That's kind of dark, dude. Oh, I'm sorry, Jake said with exaggerated concern. I didn't realize we were worried about dark themes here in your maximum security torture facility. Should I have brought cookies and friendship bracelets instead? Vex decided to take control of the situation before it spiraled further out of his grasp. Enough banter. We will begin with standard psychological pressure techniques. Dr. Nexus, activate the fear response amplifiers. Dr. Nexus tapped her tablet, and the cell filled with a low subsonic hum designed to trigger primal terror in most species. The lighting shifted to a sickly red, and holographic images of predators and natural disasters began flashing on the walls. Jake watched the display with the detached interest of a film critic reviewing a summer blockbuster. Interesting approach. Subliminal fear induction combined with environmental stressors. Though I have to say, your frequency is about 12 Hz too high for optimal human neural disruption, and the holographic projectors need calibration. That saber-toothed tiger looks more like an angry house cat with dental problems. The equipment is functioning perfectly, Vex insisted, though he made a mental note to have the technical staff check the calibration settings. If you say so, Commander. But I'm telling you, if you shift the subsonic frequency down to about 7 Hz and increase the holographic resolution by 30%, you'd get much better results. Current setup is more likely to induce mild nausea than existential terror. Dr. Nexus was frantically taking notes. Subject displays complete immunity to fear response manipulation. Possible explanations include advanced mental conditioning, pharmaceutical enhancement, or species-specific neural variations. Or maybe your equipment just isn't very good, Jake suggested helpfully. No offense, Doc. I'm sure you're working with the budget you've got. But fear induction technology has come a long way in the past few decades. You might want to consider upgrading to quantum resonance psychological manipulation. Much more effective and surprisingly energy efficient. Lieutenant Quickshot raised his hand. Excuse me, prisoner dude, but how do you know so much about torture technology? Are you like a professional torturer or something? Jake laughed. Oh no, Lieutenant, nothing so dramatic. I'm more of a technical consultant. I work on improving systems, making them more efficient, fixing problems, that sort of thing. It's not glamorous work, but it pays the bills. Vex felt another wave of unease. What kind of technical consulting? Oh, you know, this and that. Government contracts mostly. Defense systems, security protocols, weapons development. I've done some work on interrogation equipment too. Really fascinating field. The intersection of psychology, neuroscience, and applied physics. Plus, there's always room for innovation. Dr. Nexus had stopped taking notes and was staring at Jake with something approaching alarm. Commander, I think we need to run a more detailed background check on our prisoner. Unnecessary, Vex declared, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. We know everything we need to know about the Ghost of Terra. He is a terrorist and a saboteur, nothing more. Jake tilted his head thoughtfully. You know, Commander, I'm curious about something. When your people captured me, they said I was wanted for infiltrating secure facilities and causing massive system failures. But did anyone ever actually investigate what I was doing in those facilities? You were obviously gathering intelligence for future attacks, Vex replied automatically. Were I, though? Jake asked. Because I'm pretty sure if you checked your maintenance logs for those installations, you'd find that most of their critical systems were running significantly better after my visits. Fewer power failures, improved security protocols, upgraded defensive capabilities. Kind of strange behavior for a terrorist, don't you think? Lieutenant Quickshot looked confused. Wait, so you were helping the facilities you broke into? I wouldn't say broke into, Jake corrected. I prefer unauthorized maintenance visits. And yes, I was helping. See, I have this thing about seeing systems running inefficiently. It's like nails on a chalkboard to me. I can't help myself. I have to fix things. Dr. Nexus was now typing furiously on her tablet. Commander, we need to halt this interrogation immediately. I'm detecting significant inconsistencies in our intelligence reports. Vex waved her concerns away. Impossible. The Ghost of Terra is the most wanted human criminal in the galaxy. Our information is beyond question. Jake sat back down on his bench and smiled. Commander, can I ask you a personal question? When was the last time you actually read a technical manual? I mean, really read one, not just skimmed the executive summary. I am a military commander, not a technician, Vex replied stiffly. I leave such matters to subordinates. Right, of course, and I'm sure your subordinates are very competent. It's just that I've noticed a few things about your facility here that suggest maybe your technical staff could use some additional training, or possibly replacement. No judgment, mind you. It happens to the best organizations. The subsonic fear generators suddenly cut out with a grinding noise, and the holographic projectors flickered and died. In the sudden silence, Jake's voice sounded unnaturally loud. See, that's exactly what I was talking about. Commander Vex's mandibles clicked with increasing agitation as maintenance crews swarmed through the detention facility, trying to restore the failed interrogation equipment. The morning session had been a complete disaster, and he was beginning to suspect that Jake Morrison was somehow responsible for the technical difficulties. This is sabotage, Vex declared to anyone within earshot. Somehow, this human terrorist has compromised our systems from inside his cell. Jake, who had spent the last hour doing what appeared to be yoga exercises, looked up with mild interest. Commander, I hate to interrupt your paranoid conspiracy theories, but I'm still locked in a cell behind an energy barrier. Unless I've developed psychic powers in the last 24 hours. I don't think I'm responsible for your equipment failures, though I did mention yesterday that you should probably check those capacitors. Dr. Nexus approached the cell with her tablet, which was now displaying several concerning technical reports. Commander, the maintenance team confirms that the interrogation equipment suffered multiple cascading failures due to improper calibration and component degradation. The issues appear to be systematic rather than sabotage-related. Impossible, Vex insisted. Our equipment is state-of-the-art Kraloxian military technology. It cannot simply fail. Actually, Jake interjected, it's not that state-of-the-art. Your interrogation gear is at least 15 years old, and judging from the serial numbers I could see on the neural disruptors, but you bought them second-hand from a decommissioned prison facility, which explains why they're falling apart. By the way, Lieutenant Quickshot had been listening to this exchange with growing fascination. Dude, how can you tell all that just by looking at the equipment? Pattern recognition, Jake replied. Plus, I've seen a lot of similar systems over the years. You develop an eye for these things, for instance. Your energy barrier generators are running hot because someone set the power output about 20% higher than recommended specifications, probably trying to compensate for the fact that the containment field has been losing coherency due to worn-out focusing crystals. Dr. Nexus checked her readings and blinked in surprise. He's correct. The containment field is indeed running at elevated power levels, and our diagnostic shows crystalline degradation in the focusing array. Vex felt his world beginning to shift beneath his feet. How could you possibly know about our focusing crystals? Lucky guess? Jake suggested with a grin. Look, Commander, I can see you're getting frustrated. Why don't you skip the torture and just show me your weapons arsenal? I promise I'll be appropriately intimidated by your superior firepower. The suggestion appealed to Vex's wounded pride. If this human wanted to see advanced Kraloxian military technology, he would give him a demonstration that would finally break his insufferable confidence. Very well. Lieutenant Quickshot, escort the prisoner to Weapons Bay 7. Under maximum security protocols. Awesome, Jake said, bouncing slightly on his toes. I love weapons demonstrations. It's like Christmas morning, but with more explosions and potential death. The weapons bay was an impressive space, filled with rows of gleaming armaments that represented the cutting edge of coalition military technology. Plasma rifles, particle beam cannons, antimatter grenades, and fusion warheads were displayed in pristine condition, each weapon capable of devastating entire city blocks. Jake walked through the arsenal with the enthusiasm of a child in a candy store, examining each weapon with genuine professional interest. Oh, wow. Is that a Mark V plasma rifle? I haven't seen one of those in years. And those particle beams, are they running on standard antimatter cores or did you upgrade to quantum vacuum generators? The most advanced quantum vacuum technology in the galaxy, Vex proclaimed proudly. Each weapon represents decades of Kraloxian research and development. Really impressive stuff, Jake agreed, leaning in to examine a particularly large cannon. Though I notice you're still using traditional magnetic focusing for the particle streams. Have you considered switching to gravitometric lens arrays? Much better accuracy and significantly improved power efficiency. Dr. Nexus was taking notes again, but her expression had shifted from scientific curiosity to growing concern. Subject displays extensive knowledge of advanced weapons technology, including systems classified above top-secret clearance levels. It's just basic physics, Doc, Jake said, running his hand along the cannon's barrel. Particle acceleration, magnetic field manipulation, antimatter containment. Once you understand the underlying principles, the engineering applications become pretty obvious. Though I have to say, whoever designed this targeting system deserves a raise. Really elegant solution to the quantum uncertainty problem. Lieutenant Quickshot was practically glowing with excitement. This is so cool. Nobody ever explains how the weapons work. They just tell us to point and shoot. That's because most people don't really understand the technology they're using, Jake explained. They see a big gun that makes things explode, and that's enough for them. But the real beauty is in the engineering. Look at this antimatter containment system, for example. See how they've integrated the magnetic bottle with the trigger mechanism. Brilliant design. Really elegant. Vex was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with Jake's detailed analysis of their weapons systems. Enough technical discussion. The point is that these weapons could vaporize you instantly human. Does that not inspire fear? Jake considered this seriously. Well, Commander, I appreciate the offer. But I'd rather not be vaporized today if it's all the same to you. I've got plans for the weekend. But I am curious about one thing. Do you happen to have maintenance records for these weapons? Because I'm seeing some concerning wear patterns on the plasma rifle capacitors. Maintenance records are classified, Vex replied automatically. Fair enough, Jake shrugged. It's just that those capacitors look like they haven't been properly serviced in about 6 months. And that particle beam cannon over there has what looks like a hairline crack in the focusing crystal. Could be dangerous if you actually tried to fire it. Dr. Nexus immediately began scanning the weapons with her diagnostic equipment. Within minutes, she had confirmed both of Jake's observations. Commander, he's correct about the maintenance issues. Several of these weapons are showing signs of component failure. How is this possible? Vex demanded. Our technical staff performs regular maintenance on all equipment. Your technical staff might want to read the actual maintenance manuals, Jake suggested gently. I'm seeing about 15 different protocol violations just in this room. Nothing that couldn't be fixed with a proper overhaul, but definitely not what I'd call combat-ready condition. Lieutenant Quickshot looked worried. Dude, are you saying our weapons might explode if we try to use them? Oh, probably not explode, Jake reassured him. More like catastrophic power feedback resulting in massive system failure and possible structural damage to the surrounding area. But hey, tomato. Vex stared at his weapons arsenal, seeing it now through Jake's eyes. Instead of an impressive display of military might, it looked like a collection of expensive, poorly maintained equipment that might kill more coalition soldiers than enemies. You are lying, he said weakly, trying to undermine our confidence. Commander, I have no reason to lie to you, Jake replied. I'm locked up, surrounded by armed guards, and completely at your mercy. What possible advantage could I gain by pointing out maintenance problems? If anything, I'd prefer your weapons to work properly. Malfunctioning military equipment has a tendency to kill bystanders, and I'd rather not become collateral damage in your next weapons test. Dr. Nexus had been running increasingly detailed scans, and her expression was growing more alarmed by the minute. Commander, we need to evacuate this weapons bay immediately. I'm detecting critical instabilities in several of the antimatter containment systems. As alarms began blaring throughout the facility, Vex realized that his demonstration of superior firepower had somehow turned into an emergency evacuation. And the human prisoner, who was supposed to be cowering in terror, was instead offering helpful suggestions about proper antimatter storage protocols. Something was very, very wrong with this picture. The weapons bay evacuation had taken 3 hours, during which Jake provided a running commentary on proper emergency procedures while helping to safely power down the unstable antimatter containment systems. By the time the all-clear was given, Commander Vex had developed a persistent twitch in his left mandible, and Dr. Nexus had filled 17 pages of notes on their prisoner's technical expertise. This is impossible, Vex muttered as they returned to the detention area. A human terrorist cannot possess such detailed knowledge of our classified weapons systems. Commander, Dr. Nexus said quietly, I've been running background analysis on our prisoner's biometric data and speech patterns. I think we need to discuss some disturbing possibilities regarding his identity. Jake had been returned to his cell and was now sitting peacefully on his bench, humming what sounded like an old Earth folk song. He looked up as the group approached. How did the antimatter cleanup go? Did you manage to stabilize the containment fields without triggering a cascade failure? The systems have been temporarily shut down pending complete overhaul, Dr. Nexus replied. Thanks to your assistance. No problem, Doc. Always happy to help prevent antimatter explosions. Bad for everyone involved, really. Though I have to ask, who was your original contractor for those containment systems? Because I'm pretty sure they cut some corners during installation. Lieutenant Quickshot had been unusually quiet during the evacuation, but now he spoke up with obvious confusion. Prisoner dude, can I ask you something? Why do you know so much about our weapons? I mean, you're not just guessing about this stuff. You know exactly how everything works. Jake tilted his head thoughtfully. That's a very good question, Lieutenant. How much do you know about human-alien cooperation during the early days of the Coalition? Not much, Quickshot admitted. History wasn't really my strong subject in Academy. Well, about 12 years ago, before relations between humans and the Coalition went sour, there were several joint development projects. Technology sharing, mutual defense initiatives, that sort of thing. Humans provided certain expertise. Aliens provided certain expertise. Everyone worked together for the greater good of galactic peace. Dr. Nexus had gone very still. Commander, I need to speak with you privately. Immediately. Immediately. Continue your explanation, Human Vex ordered, ignoring his science officer's obvious distress. Sure thing, Commander. So during this period of cooperation, Human engineers and scientists worked closely with coalition technical teams to develop advanced weapons and defense systems. The idea was to combine human innovation with alien manufacturing capabilities to create the most effective military technology possible. Jake stood up and walked to the energy barrier, his casual demeanor shifting slightly to something more professional. The humans brought some interesting ideas to the table: creative problem solving, unconventional approaches, a talent for seeing solutions that others missed. In return, the coalition provided advanced materials, manufacturing techniques, and theoretical knowledge that humans lacked. Ancient history, Vex dismissed. Those partnerships ended years ago when humanity revealed its true aggressive nature. Did they, though? Jake asked. I mean, the official partnerships ended, sure. But what about the technology that was developed during that time? The weapons systems, the defensive installations, the security protocols. All of that equipment is still out there, still being used. Dr. Nexus grabbed Vex's arm with enough force to dent his armor. Commander, we need to evacuate this facility immediately. What are you talking about? Vex demanded. Jake answered before Dr. Nexus could respond. She ran a comprehensive identity check, didn't you, Doc? Cross-referenced my biometric data, voice patterns, and technical knowledge against historical coalition databases. Oh no, Lieutenant Quickshot breathed. Oh no, oh no, oh no. See, the thing is, Commander, I'm not actually the Ghost of Terra. That's just a nickname your intelligence services gave me because I kept showing up in places I wasn't supposed to be. But I wasn't there to commit sabotage or gather intelligence. Jake smiled, and for the first time since his capture, the expression didn't look entirely friendly. I was there to perform routine maintenance on equipment that I designed, equipment that your people have been using for over a decade without proper upkeep or technical support. Dr. Nexus finally found her voice. Commander Vex Thornwall, meet Jake Morrison. Lead engineer for the Coalition Defense Initiative. Primary designer of our current weapons systems, security protocols, and containment technologies. The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of the energy barrier and Lieutenant Quickshot's quiet whimpering. That's impossible, Vex said weakly. The human contractors were all accounted for when the partnership ended. Most of them, sure, Jake agreed. But a few of us stayed on as independent consultants. Unofficial capacity, you understand. Someone had to keep all that fancy equipment running properly. And let me tell you, Commander, you people are terrible at reading maintenance manuals. The implications began crashing down on Vex like a collapsing star. Every weapon he had threatened Jake with, every security system in the facility, every piece of advanced technology that gave the Coalition its military advantage, all of it had been designed by the man he was holding prisoner. The containment field, Vex whispered. Yep, that's mine too, Jake confirmed. Model 7 plasma containment system with quantum-locked focusing crystals. Took me 3 months to work out the harmonic stabilization problems. Really proud of that one, actually. The interrogation equipment? Also mine, though I have to say you're using it completely wrong. Neural disruptors aren't supposed to cause permanent brain damage. That's just bad engineering. Lieutenant Quickshot raised his hand tentatively. What about the weapons we were going to use to, intimidate you? All mine, Lieutenant. Every single one. Including the antimatter containment systems that were about to catastrophically fail before I helped you shut them down. Dr. Nexus had been checking her tablet frantically. Commander, according to the historical records, Engineer Morrison has administrative override codes for every system in this facility. Jake's smile widened. Now that, Doc, is a very interesting point. I haven't had occasion to use those codes in quite some time, but I'm betting they still work. Want to find out? For the first time in his military career, Commander Vex Thornwall experienced what humans call an existential crisis. The realization that they had been threatening their own weapons designer with his own weapons had a profound effect on the detention facility's atmosphere. Commander Vex sat in stunned silence. Lieutenant Quickshot had begun making what appeared to be a small shrine out of office supplies, and Dr. Nexus was frantically reviewing 12 years of technical documentation. Jake, meanwhile, had adopted the patient tone of a tech support specialist dealing with a particularly dense customer. "So, Commander, now that we've cleared up the whole mistaken identity situation, shall we discuss why I was actually in your sector?" "I don't understand any of this," Vex muttered, his mandibles clicking weakly. "You are supposed to be a terrorist, a ghost, a phantom of destruction." "Right about that," Jake said, settling back on his bench. "The reason your people kept finding evidence of my visits but never managed to catch me is because I was trying very hard not to be caught. Not because I was committing crimes, but because I was working without proper authorization. Do you have any idea how much paperwork is involved in official maintenance contracts with the coalition government?" Lieutenant Quickshot looked up from his improvised shrine. "A lot." "Mountains, Lieutenant. Bureaucratic mountains. It's faster and more efficient to just sneak in, fix what's broken, leave a few improvement suggestions, and disappear before anyone notices. Unfortunately, your security services noticed the improved performance and assumed it must be sabotage." Dr. Nexus had been cross-referencing Jake's presence with facility performance reports. "Commander, I've confirmed his story. Every installation that reported Ghost of Terra infiltration also showed significant improvements in operational efficiency within weeks of the alleged breach. But the system failures," Vex protested weakly. "The massive damage reports." "Oh, those," Jake nodded. "Yeah, those usually happen when facilities ignored my maintenance recommendations. See, when I upgrade a system, I also document all the components that are reaching end-of-life status. If you don't replace those parts on schedule, you get cascading failures, like what almost happened in your weapons bay." Jake stood up and walked to the energy barrier, examining it with professional interest. "Speaking of which, this containment field really needs attention. I can hear the harmonic distortion from here. When was the last time someone recalibrated the quantum resonance matrix?" "I have no idea what you're talking about," Vex admitted. "That's the problem." Jake sighed. "Look, Commander, can we drop the whole prisoner interrogation thing? I've got a job to do, and your facility is in desperate need of maintenance. Plus, I'm getting really tired of this cell. The acoustic properties are all wrong, and the lighting is giving me a headache." Dr. Nexus checked her readings on the containment field. "He's right about the calibration issues. The containment matrix is operating at 73% efficiency. It should be running at 98% minimum," Jake added. "Any lower and you risk spontaneous field collapse. Which, given that this is a maximum security detention facility, would be what we in the engineering business call a significant problem." Lieutenant Quickshot had abandoned his shrine and was now taking notes. "So when you broke into all those facilities, you were actually trying to help us?" "Unauthorized maintenance visits," Jake corrected. "And yes, I was helping. It's a compulsion, really. I see a malfunctioning system, and I have to fix it. I can't help myself. My therapist says it's related to childhood abandonment issues, but I think it's just good engineering ethics." Vex finally found his voice, though it came out as more of a croak. "If you can override our security systems, why haven't you escaped?" Jake looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Escape? Commander, why would I want to escape? This facility has some of the most interesting technical challenges I've seen in years. Your power distribution network is a fascinating mess. Your environmental controls are held together with hope and determination. And don't get me started on your communications array. It's like a puzzle designed specifically for someone with my skill set." Plus, Jake added with a grin, "You people owe me about 12 years of unpaid consulting fees. I figure the least you can do is let me finish the job." Dr. Nexus looked up from her tablet. Commander, what are our options here? The question hung in the air like a malfunctioning anti-grav unit. Vex realized that every traditional response to a prisoner situation was completely irrelevant. They couldn't torture someone who had designed their torture equipment. They couldn't threaten him with weapons he had created. They couldn't even keep him locked up, since he apparently had override codes for their security systems. "What do you want?" Vex asked finally. "A cup of coffee would be nice," Jake replied immediately. "Real coffee, not that synthetic stuff. And maybe access to your technical specifications database so I can properly assess what needs fixing. Oh, and a work authorization form. I know I said paperwork was a hassle, but I'm getting too old to keep sneaking around like some kind of maintenance ninja." Lieutenant Quickshot raised his hand. "Can I help with the repairs? This is like the coolest thing that's ever happened." "Sure, Lieutenant. I could use an assistant. Fair warning, though, proper system maintenance involves a lot of crawling through access tunnels and getting covered in lubricants and coolant fluid." "That sounds awesome," Quickshot replied with the enthusiasm of someone who had just discovered his dream job. Dr. Nexus had been quietly calculating on her tablet. "Commander, if we authorize Engineer Morrison to perform comprehensive facility maintenance, our operational efficiency could improve by an estimated 40 to 60%. Jake nodded approvingly. "Doc's got a good grasp of the numbers. Though I think you're being conservative with those estimates. Some of your systems are so far out of specification that proper maintenance could double your performance metrics." Vex looked around the detention facility, seeing it now through the eyes of someone who actually understood how it was supposed to work. Every system, every piece of equipment, every supposedly advanced technology, all of it had been limping along on substandard maintenance and sheer luck. "Fine," Vex said, the word coming out like a death rattle. "Dr. Nexus, prepare work authorization forms for Engineer Morrison. Lieutenant Quickshot, you are hereby assigned as his technical assistant." Jake clapped his hands together. "Excellent. Now, about that containment field. The shutdown sequence requires a 7-digit authorization code followed by a biometric confirmation. Would you like me to talk you through it, or should I just do it myself?" The energy barrier flickered and died before anyone could respond. Jake stepped out of his cell, stretched and cracked his knuckles. "Much better," he said. "Now, let's go fix your facility before something important explodes." 3 days later, the Kryllox Prime detention facility was running better than it had since its original construction. The power grid hummed at optimal efficiency, the environmental controls maintained perfect atmospheric conditions throughout all sectors, and the weapons systems were not only functional but exceeded their original design specifications. Jake sat in what had formerly been an interrogation chamber, now converted into a makeshift engineering office. Technical manuals and diagnostic equipment covered every available surface, and Lieutenant Quickshot sat nearby, covered in coolant fluid and grinning like he had just discovered the meaning of life. "So the quantum resonance frequency has to match the harmonic oscillation of the containment matrix," Quickshot was saying, reading from a maintenance manual. "Otherwise you get cascade failure in the primary systems." "Exactly," Jake confirmed, sipping from a mug of actual coffee that Dr. Nexus had somehow procured from the facility's emergency supplies. "You're getting the hang of this, Lieutenant. Pretty soon you'll be able to handle routine maintenance without supervision." Commander Vex entered the office, looking like someone who had spent several sleepless nights reconsidering his entire worldview. His ceremonial armor had been replaced with practical work clothes, and he carried a stack of official-looking documents. "Engineer Morrison," Vex said formally, "I have your permanent consulting contract, along with authorization for unlimited facility access and a budget for equipment upgrades." Jake accepted the paperwork and glanced through it quickly. "Very thorough, Commander, though you might want to increase the coffee allocation. I go through about 2 pots a day when I'm working on complex systems." "Already noted in the contract addendum," Vex replied. along with provisions for real pastrami sandwiches delivered weekly from Earth. Now that's what I call proper contractor support, Jake grinned. Dr. Nexus, how are those efficiency reports looking? Dr. Nexus appeared in the doorway, her tablet displaying impressive charts and graphs. Facility-wide performance improvements of 68%, Commander. Power consumption down by 30%, system reliability up by 85%. And those are just the preliminary numbers. Outstanding, Jake said. Though I should mention, this is just the beginning. Once I get approval to upgrade your primary systems to current specifications, we're looking at performance improvements that will make these numbers look conservative. Lieutenant Quickshot bounced excitedly in his chair. Commander, can we show Engineer Morrison the other facilities in this sector? I bet they need maintenance too. Vex's mandibles clicked in what Jake had learned to recognize as reluctant agreement. The Coalition Defense Command has already requested a comprehensive technical assessment of all installations in the Outer Rim. It seems word of your expertise has spread. Wonderful, Jake said, making notes on his tablet. I'll need a proper engineering team, updated technical specifications for all current Coalition equipment, and authorization to implement necessary upgrades. Oh, and a better coffee maker. This one is adequate, but barely. Dr. Nexus was reviewing her own notes from the past few days. Engineer Morrison, I have to ask, why did you continue maintaining our equipment after the official partnerships ended? You could have simply walked away and let our systems fail. Jake considered the question seriously. Because that's not how engineering works, Doc. When you design something, you become responsible for it. These systems protect people, keep facilities running, prevent disasters. Just because politicians decided to end diplomatic relations doesn't mean the laws of physics stopped working. Plus, he added with a grin, you people are hilariously bad at reading technical manuals. If I hadn't kept sneaking in to fix things, half the Coalition fleet would have suffered catastrophic system failures years ago. Commander Vex had been quietly observing this exchange, and now he spoke with something approaching respect. Engineer Morrison, I owe you an apology. We treated you as an enemy when you were trying to help us. No hard feelings, Commander, Jake replied. Though next time you capture someone, you might want to run a proper background check before threatening them with their own inventions. Saves everyone a lot of embarrassment. Lieutenant Quickshot had been studying a technical schematic and suddenly looked up with excitement. Hey, Engineer Morrison, what did you mean when you said the real treasure was the technical documentation we made along the way? Jake blinked in confusion. I never said that, Lieutenant. Oh, Quickshot said, looking disappointed. I thought that was supposed to be the inspiring ending to our adventure. The inspiring ending, Jake replied, is that from now on your equipment will actually work the way it's supposed to. No more cascading system failures, no more emergency shutdowns, no more wondering if your weapons will explode when you try to use them. Plus, he added, standing up and gathering his tools, I finally get to do maintenance work with proper authorization and unlimited coffee. That's what I call a happy ending. Dr. Nexus smiled, a surprisingly warm expression on her usually serious face. And we finally have someone who can explain why our technology works instead of just telling us to push buttons and hope for the best. Commander Vex looked around the newly efficient facility, listening to the smooth hum of properly maintained systems. I suppose there are worse ways to end a week than discovering that your most wanted terrorist is actually your most valuable contractor. Jake shouldered his toolkit and headed for the door. Come on, team. We've got 17 more facilities to inspect, and I'm pretty sure at least half of them haven't had their antimatter containment systems properly serviced in years. This is going to be fun. As the unlikely group headed off to begin their sector-wide maintenance tour, the detention facility's systems continued to run at peak efficiency, humming quietly to themselves like contented mechanical pets. And somewhere in the facility's computer logs, a simple notation was recorded: maintenance completed. All systems optimal. Next service visit scheduled in 6 months. Please read the manual. Because in the end, the real treasure wasn't the friends they made along the way, or the weapons they pointed at each other, or even the dramatic revelations about mistaken identity. The real treasure was proper preventive maintenance, timely component replacement, and always reading the technical specifications before operating advanced alien technology. And coffee. Definitely coffee.